You are now listening to the Dual Position Podcast.
The boys are back to talk all things SuperCoach all season long.
Please welcome your hosts, Whisperer and Brew.
Mate, just as we pressed record to talk about the Cowboys, it started absolutely raining the house down, thunder, lightning. So it must be a sign that they really don't want us to touch on this side, who I do not have high hopes for this year. Look, they finished 15th last year with a 7-17 record, 5-7 at home, which is fine for a bottom 8 side. 2-10 away from home, which is not good. They ranked 13th for points scored, 16th for points against, so the bottom half of the table for both attack and defense. And yeah, a lot of people are tipping them for the spoon this year. I am one of them. Where do you have the Cowboys ranking, mate?
Dead last. Absolutely dead last. The Tigers might shake them, but I think the Tigers have a better side than they do.
We might give them a red hot crack, but yes, I am also hoping that we do have a little bit more that we can offer. I mean, it all comes down to what Payton wants to do with one of the best forwards we've ever seen. So it's very, very weird that we're talking about a side with one of the best forwards we've seen in the last 10 years. And then to put them at the spoon, it raises the question, has this 10-year contract been a success? And you'd probably say no. It hasn't led to much success when it comes to the Cowboys. I mean, he was part of the premiership winning squad and Jason Taumalolo, but since he signed that massive $10 million deal, it hasn't really kicked on. And Cowboys fans might disagree, but I'm not too sure if what stock we put in these halves, and we'll touch on them soon enough. But they start the season with the Bulldogs at home, winnable game. Raiders at home, probably another winnable game up in North Queensland. Broncos away, Roosters at home, Warriors away. So I would say best case 2 and 3 from the first 5.
Look, they could get 4-1, but I just don't see this side gelling straight away. They've got a relatively good pack, I think. I think you're going to see a little bit of a changing in the guard this season. I think the fact that they're running with Hamiso now at fullback, that's an indication that they're going more youth. I think you'll see both the second rowers. I've named 2 basically rookie second rowers this year, starting for them, new 13 potentially. I think you're going to start to see a change, but it's going to take time, and how they use Taumalolo is going to be really important, and what the Chad offers to this club in terms of direction and game management is going to be really key for their season. If he controls this team and Drinkwater can play off the back of it, and they've got a few exciting guys in the back line and a few exciting guys in the second row, then maybe they can shock us and do better than what we think. But I just think it's going to take time, and that's why I've got them finishing dead last.
You mentioned the Chad, and we'll touch on him as one of the first gains. He's come from the Sharks / the Warriors last year. They also bring in Peter Hiku, Jermaine Snell-Brown from the Warriors as well. And they also bring in Brendan Elliott from Lee in the UK. When it comes to their losses, they are losing Michael Morgan, Justin O'Neill, and Javid Bowen all to retirement. Francis Molo off to the Dragons, Corey Jensen off to the Broncos, Peter Holler off to the Raiders, Shane Wright off to Salford in the UK, and Michael Bell has been released. Worth noting, they also get the West Tigers back rower Luciano Leilua coming in through the door in 2023. On the injuries and suspension fronts, they have Ben Hampton, who should be back with round 1 after a hammy issue this off-season. Look, Peter Hiku, Jermaine Snell-Brown. Hiku can provide an impact to the starting 13. Snell-Brown, I think he'll help with the 17, probably not the starting 13. The Chad, he isn't signed to sit there and twiddle thumbs. He'll be coming straight into the starting side. And Brendan Elliott's an interesting one. A recent signing coming over from the UK. A lot of people are keen to see him play some footy. And I'm one of them. I'm really keen to see what Brendan Elliott can do. So don't hate the signings. Hard to move around when you're paying the Chad so much, and obviously Taumalolo's on some big money, so they're going to build around these rookies, and we're going to see how they can go under Todd Payton.
Yeah, Chad Townsend in this situation just screams of Blake Green to me, and I just don't see how you pay him that much money. Pay a little bit more and get Nico Hines, for God's sake. It's an insane move, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he is sort of the leadership presence that they're looking for. Whether he can provide or not, it's a different story. But I think they're going for that mold. But then it raises the question: why did you sign Tom Dearden last year? Because Townsend and Dearden aren't going to work together. It's going to have to be Townsend and Drinkwater, you would expect. So look, we'll touch on that when we come to the 6 and 7. When it comes to my round one side, mate, I've got Hamiso at fullback. All the talk is to be playing fullback. I was probably a touch too harsh on him when we were touching on all the new positions and whatnot, and in the Centre Wing podcast. I don't see him lighting the world on fire, because the Cowboys are the Cowboys. That's the thing. And like, I got burnt with this with Cody Ramsey when I took him over the Origin period, thinking that a winger converted to fullback will just score fullback points. But fullback isn't Hamiso's best position. I think we can all agree that he's a better winger than he is a fullback. But I'm keen to see what he can do at 419k, I think he is from memory. I don't love the move. I think people are just getting sucked into the fact that he is playing fullback. I don't know, man. I know you're more keen on him than I am.
I think he'll go on a run at some point and he'll become an option. It's just a matter of when he does and what he will cost at that given time. Now, I'm not going to start the season with him because I don't have faith in the Cowboys or their system. I don't have faith that if Hamiso has a bad game or two, that they don't just go, all right, Val, you're back in the fullback slot. I don't have a trust factor with them. But at the same time, I think you can't sit there and say Tessie New is a good option in the centers and not say Hamiso is, because they're very similar players. And I think Hamiso has a lot more upside than say a Tessie New does. So if I was picking between either of them, I probably would pick Hamiso, just because I think he's a better pure football player and has more explosive upside to, score a 90-meter try from his own 10 than Niu does. But he's not someone that I'm willing to risk to start the season. I think it's too much of a risk with a side that looks like they're going to be, at least bottom 4, probably bottom 2, very well could come last, as we're predicting.
I don't know how much I can take that New and Hammer debate. I'm not having that. For anyone that is new to this podcast, a couple of weeks ago, whatever, Brew and I placed a wager. So if Hamiso averages more than 55, so 55.1 and higher, I will donate $250 to a charity of Brew's choosing. When he averages less than 55, Brew will be forever indebted to me. And we'll go from there. For me, Hamiso, no, because the Cowboys suck. Brew's probably in the same boat, but he has higher prospects than I do. When it comes to the wings, I think one of them picks themselves in Kyle Felt, and the other one, I've got Murray Tuolungi as my other winger.
I love Kyle Felt. I will never not have love for him after what he did in the 2016 grand final or whatever it was. Shout out to the big bearded man. I kill his life on Twitter with this moment, but yeah, I love Kyle Felt.
Who was your other winger?
My other wing is Murray Tuolungi.
Yeah.
I think the wingers speak for themselves. I can't see it being any other combo but those two.
They speak for themselves, and they also speak not an option for my classic sides. Kyle Felt, he'll score 17 tries this year. Half of them will be off kicks, which don't account for line breaks. So nearly half the points there. Does he go?
I will say one thing. I wouldn't mind a late round draft pick on one of those wingers, but because if you look who's inside him, Hiku loves a flick pass, and Valentine Holmes is very good at a cutout ball. So that there is a world where you could take them late and have a little smoky gameplay option in the draft format.
Yeah, I think that says a lot about their classic prospects when we're talking about taking them late in the draft. So classic. I mean, I've said this to Brew off camera. I don't have any Cowboys players in my classic side at the moment, and that includes the two mid-range / cheapy second roles that we'll touch on. The centers, as you touched on, mate, Val Holmes, Peter Hiku. Peter Hiku, new inclusion to the club. I really liked it. I really think Peter Hiku looked really good last year for the Warriors when he came back. And Val Holmes in the centers, it's a tough one. I touched on Hamiso and his best position not being fullback and it being wing. I also think Val Holmes' best position is on the wing, not center. So I just worry that Todd Payton's trying to fit too many square pegs into round holes here and trying to get a little bit too tricky.
It is a very disjointed backline, in my opinion. I've never really seen Val as a centre. I think he might have played an Origin game there, but that's what you do in Origin. You just pick a team of stars and put them somewhere, a bit like Tom playing centres for New South Wales. Hamiso, I think they'll give Hamiso a crack at fullback. I think he showed a little bit at the back end of the season, and they did get a bit of spark out of that. I think they're going to have to learn how to use Holmes because I feel like he's a little bit wasted in that centre slot. I know they say he's going to roam around a bit like Tom Trbojevic does, but Tom's doing it from fullback. It's a lot harder to game manage if you're moving out of position as a centre in an attacking route. Like if they throw an intercept or something, or there's a turnover,
your defense is shot.
Unless they know how to slide and can do it with precision. Like I'd back a Roosters type side with Manu to do this. And I think they might even do it this year. I think you might see Manu come out of the line and play a little bit of floating 5/8. But I know that Trent Robinson will have a system in place and they will nail it. They will slide, Tupanua or whomever will move out into the centre to allow the extra floating game. I just don't have the confidence that Cowboys side, with so many players playing potentially out of position, are going to be able to make that work. And that worries me with Val.
I mean, they ranked 16th last year in defense, so I don't think defensive intelligence is Todd Payton's strong suit. So he could be playing with fire if he wants to experiment with this, but it could work out fantastically if they could find it.
Like Val's got the skill factor to do it.
Oh yeah, I'm not worried about Valentine Holmes here. I'm worried about the players around him and the forward pack, especially the young back rowers that you and I have both picked. So
Hiku's not a fantastic defender either. So having, a bad centre, well, not a bad centre, a poor defensive centre, in my opinion, and then another one that might be floating, you're asking for trouble.
The halves, one of them picks themselves in Chad Townsend. You're not moving up to Queensland from the beautiful beaches of Cronulla to, sit with Todd Payton in the coaching box. The other one is interesting because we touched on that they brought in Tom Dearden last year. They had Drinkwater, who was floating between fullback and 6. What do they do there? I've gone Drinkwater. I think it makes the most logical sense. I think Dearden and Chad Townsend together would be an absolute eyesore for everyone to watch, not even Cowboys fans. I think everyone would hate to see that. It'd be so stagnant and so weird. So that's why I've gone Drink, because you need some kind of flair here. Chad Townsend isn't going to provide that. He'll be a great game manager, a great kicking game, great guy to lead you around the park, but I don't think he complements Dearden well, and that's why I think you've got to have Drink there.
I do agree. I wouldn't rule out Townsend playing 6 and maybe Dearden playing 7 at some point. I do think if you're coming last, it's inevitable that at some point in time, people are going to get dropped. So I wouldn't rule it out down the line. I think you are correct. In terms of a traditional 6-7 type setup, you normally do have a game manager and you have someone that kind of plays off the back of that with a little bit of flair. Walker and Kiri will do that this season. Cleary and Luai have mastered that. Most sides have that kind of setup. Reynolds and Walker's another example. All successful clubs. Drinkwater, I had so much hope for Drinkwater as a footballer, and he's just really not become what I thought he was going to. Like when he was at Melbourne, I just thought, who's going to sign this kid? This kid's so talented. We just haven't really seen it. I don't know if it's a systems-based thing because he's gone from such a good system where the likes of your Cronks and your Slaters, etc., or Cameron Smith would put him in excellent position to play off the back of, and he just doesn't have that since he's left. I'd like to see him succeed because I think he is talented. I really worry for him and his NRL career that he's just pretty much going to end up an English Super League player and, go win the Man of Steel, which is, it's like winning a Golden Globe. Like, it just doesn't mean anything. So I'm a bit worried for North Queensland. I'm a bit worried for Drinkwater.
You touch on Drinky and his ability. I think when Billy Slater moved on, Cameron Munster was promoted to 6, and the talk was Hughes, Pappenhausen, or Drinkwater as the long-term one, and everyone wanted Drinkwater as the long-term fullback over Hughes and over Pappenhausen. So it just shows you the high regard that they had him in at Melbourne, and I think he suffered an injury in 2019 moved to the Cowboys in 2020. I could be wrong. My timeline could be off here, but I know he had an injury, and then it just sort of not went downhill, but he's definitely sort of plateaued a little bit. So I'd love to see Drinky play some good footy. I'd love to see him finally find it. And then who knows, with a really good quality 7 next to him in Chad Townsend, because I think people do shit on Chad Townsend a little bit too much. He is still a very decent footballer, and I think he'll be good for this Cowboys side if they can find the combinations to link up well. Mate, I wanted to put a hypothetical to you. Let's say after like round 18, the Cowboys have had like 2 wins. What are the chances that Payton just says to Valentine, all right, mate, you go play 6 for a little bit?
This side, honestly, it would not surprise me. I would like to interject and say something. If Tom Figjam doesn't jump on Twitter and absolutely slam me for the Chad slander, I'm going to be a little bit disappointed because he's the mayor of Chad Town. I don't mind Chad. Chad's he's a premiership winner, and I really liked him when he played for Cronulla. I don't know if I see him as the leading hand in a side, though.
He has to be. There's no one else in this Cowboys side.
I keep comparing to Blake Green. Like, if you threw Blake Green in a side and said, okay, you're the leading man. Let's say at Manly, he was the leading man, and say Foran or someone was beside him. You wouldn't have confidence in that the same way that you did when Terry Evans was next to him. He's a supporting cast. He's not a lead actor. And I think that's going to get found out this year. And I think there's about 800,000 reasons why North Queensland are going to be absolutely ropeable at the end of this season.
I mean, who knows? This could be like, not make or break, because Chad Townsend, if he retires tomorrow, I'm sure he'll be a premiership winner. He'd be very happy with his career.
He's a Cronulla immortal.
Mate,
build the man a statue.
Turn the porch light on. In all seriousness, this could be it for Chad Townsend. He could be like, all right, well, this is basically my side. Like, I am the $800,000 man or whatever he's been price tagged on. So who knows what's going to happen with Chad. And look, I like him. I actually do like Chad Townsend. I rate him much more than a lot of people.
Good bloke. Very good bloke.
Yeah. Good bloke. Good for the community. Leads a lot of insight into the general NRL fan to get them to see what happens behind the scenes. But I do like to see Chad Townsend succeed. And as much as I have shit on the Cowboys in the first 17 minutes of this podcast, I do want to see them do well, because it's funny to see the Broncos not be the best Queensland side. So that's always funny. But I do think it's an uphill battle for the Cowboys. But they do have some very good some good youngsters in the forward pack. And I don't know how much this is going to piss some people off that have stocks in Ruben Cotter, but my front row does not include Jason Taumalolo, which I think a lot of people are hoping it does. My front row forwards are Coen Hess and Jordan McLean.
I don't hate it. I haven't gone that way. I do have Taumalolo at prop, and I've got Jordan McLean obviously beside him. But I prefer, from a Cowboys perspective, I prefer your way. Taumalolo should be the lock. 100% should be the lock. You're paying the man millions of dollars for 10 years or whatever. What's he on? 11 mil over 10 years or something?
Yeah, I think we're
talking $1.1 million a year. It's big bucks. And I feel like you're kind of wasting him at prop, just being a battering ram. He's a talented player. He's got good footwork. When he gets older, okay, I understand if you shift the man to prop and you reduce that workload, but not now, not when you're trying to rebuild the club. He needs to be the figurehead of that forward pack. And they're making a mockery of the 10-year contract. It's ridiculous.
Don't take this the wrong way, people, but I feel like there's this narrative put out there that like he has to play 10 because he's not a ball playing 13, but he does other things 13s can't do. He is such a damaging 13. And I'm not talking just your meat and potatoes hit ups. Like he was making 300 meters a game just in him being Jason Taumalolo from like 2017, 2018. He is, in my opinion, the greatest forward that we have seen in this modern generation of the NRL. And that includes guys like Sam Burgess. And at me and that if you want to. I don't really care. Jason Taumalolo is a superstar. And yeah, I mean, you paid the man a fortune. So you put him in at 13. I'd love to see Cotter play 13. I feel like Cotter is the better 13, but Taumalolo is the better footballer. And Taumalolo's basically come out and said, I'm not playing prop. He did this 2 years ago. He's like, no, I'm not playing prop. That ain't it, Chief. I'm playing 13. And I don't know, I just feel like Todd Payton's tried to I don't know, make it not about him because he's the head coach and I understand that. But do you know what I'm trying to say? Like he's tried to put his stamp on things. It didn't work last year. Just go back to playing Jason Taumalolo the way that he plays best. And that is at 13. That is being damaging. That is 64, 65 minutes a game where he gets as many hit-ups as he wants. You can cover for him in defense because what he does in attack is so, so lethal.
I might say a couple of controversial things here. One,
here we go.
The Taumalolo isn't a ball player comment. In my opinion, Taumalolo is as good a ball playing lock as Jake Trbojevic is.
Okay,
and
sorry,
everyone creams their pants over Jake Trbojevic.
I'll quickly caveat. I think people want this modern 13 to be your Victor Radley, your Cameron
So
Murray,
they want him to be
your
Victor
Isaiah
Radley.
Yeo.
Okay, so Victor Radley generally plays off the back of the hooker. So most of the times that he makes a line break, it's actually off the back of the hooker. Yes, he does create his own line break sometimes, but so does Taumalolo. The only difference between the two is that Radley's a lot quicker than Taumalolo is, but Taumalolo is also a battering ram. You know, he could run over a fullback. So I don't like this whole, you have to be a ball playing a ball playing lock in the modern game because you don't have to be. I actually think Manly has hurt their team to some degree by turning Jake into this guy that just plays like James Graham did a few years, where he just catches the ball and passes most of the time. I think it's
different when you've got so many assets outside of him. So the benefit of this ball playing 13 is you can have your 6 and 7 sit wider. So I think Penrith is the perfect example for this. You look at how much room Isaiah Yeo gives Jerome Luai and gives Nathan Cleary because he has that ability to stand under the goalposts and just fire 15-meter balls to Cleary, who can sit wider. And the thing is with Manly, you've obviously got DCE, who is the Australian was the Australian 7. When they now have a World Cup, it'll be Cleary. But DCE was Australia's 7. He's the Queensland 7. And you've got Turbo. So you want to just give them as much space as possible. And my counter argument for that and not having Taumalolo is, like, Chad Townsend's a good enough game manager to be able to make things. And you've got Hamiso, who's quick. You've got Val, who's going to hit. He's going to roam. I don't think you need to create the space. So I think you can have... Like, if you're going to have Val roam, that's another ball player that you can put in the side. So you can probably have Drink and Chad sit in a little bit closer to the ruck and give more room for your speedsters. And that's the reason why I've gone Taumalolo at 13, because you don't need an Isaiah Yeo type figure to give your 6 and 7 more room. And that's the reason why I've gone Lolo over Cotter. And that's the reason why I feel sometimes this modern 13 narrative can be a little bit bent, as what you were saying, because I feel like it's very team dependent and it's very dependent on what you need. Because someone like Cleary thrives off 3-on-3s. Like, he is very good at just having a 3-on-3 scenario and picking that apart. Whereas other guys might want some more space. And I feel like Chad Townsend's a guy that might need a little bit more space, having a 5-on-5 scenario, sitting maybe 2 or 3 defenders closer inwards to the ruck.
Yeah,
this is too much footy analysis.
It really frustrates me.
This is too much footy analysis for this podcast. We're just here to talk numbers, but we're now getting into the nitty-gritty of actual, like, somewhat NRL.
Everyone who plays SuperCoach is an NRL fan too. So I don't mind talking about that. I will say this. I actually like Taumalolo this year for SuperCoach, and he is well and truly on my radar. He's not currently in my side. I do want to see some trials and see how the formations go. A little bit worried about Ruben Cotter. I'm not picking Ruben Cotter. You can't pay me to pick Ruben Cotter. I don't have any faith in that guy whatsoever. I will say that he's not in my plans.
21 games, 21 games in 3 years, bro. 21 games. Bradman Best, who is injury prone, we touched on him in the previous podcast about how he's played 26 games in 2 years. Cotter's played 21 in 3. He's never played more than 6 games back to back. Like,
if I'm playing coach here, first of all, going back to the ball playing comment, I think based on what you said, and on top of that, 2 very young back rowers that are quite skillful, you don't need a ball playing back rower. That said, I still think Taumalolo's ball playing ability is fine. I think Cotter's better off on the bench.
Yes.
You know, let Taumalolo run his wrecking ball. Let him go for 35 minutes to start it. Bring a guy like Cotter on, who's very creative and deceptively strong. Let him run riot in the last 5 minutes, and let him run riot again to start the second half, and then bring your stud back on to finish the game when you need a leader and you need someone who's solid and knows how to game manage from a forwards perspective. That's what I would do. I would still be picking the 14, who I guess we'll get to soon, but I would play him as kind of like the way you have a Watson or someone on the bench that's big enough and strong enough to play as a forward or a back, but have that and still carry the 14. That's probably what I would do if I'm the Cowboys, but they're going to need a muscle up with the other two positions on the bench.
All right, so we've just had a 10-minute tangent on the modern 13. I don't think you mentioned your front rowers. You just told me that Taumalolo was one of them. So who's your other front rower?
Jordan McLean. So he speaks for himself. He will be one of the front rowers.
Your 9 is Reece Robson?
Absolutely. And I want Reece Robson playing at least 70 minutes if I'm the Cowboys.
As do I, but the presence of a curly-haired Winner Manly fullback and a broken Ruben Cotter do worry me. That's always been the problem with Reece Robson. He's always had a fantastic PPM. He's always had fantastic scores when he plays the minutes. But it just seems like he never gets the minutes, which is the big concern from SuperCoach. Let's touch on Coen Hess, who is, I guess, the starter in my side, because Jordan McLean doesn't play big enough minutes to be warrant for SuperCoach, but he will be the starter for the Cowboys, which I've got no arguments there. Coen Hess, if he gets the start and they put Taumalolo at 13, he's been strictly training in the middle. Are we going to get sucked into a Coen Hess trap, or is there some kind of value there with him?
How much does he cost?
I'm about to pull it up. It shows you
how much I know about Coen Hess.
Shows you that I've not
Coen Hess is an absolute shadow of his former self. I remember I had Coen Hess a few years ago, and I was going to cap
350, and he
nailed it that game. He scored a hat trick or something. I was so dirty. It was that season. I remember that entire season. I kept making these bold calls, going, "I should captain this bloke." I didn't do it, and then that person would kill it. And I remember distinctively, Coen Hess was one of those people, and a lot of people jumped on at that time. He was a weapon. He just seems to be lazy now, and he comes on and he doesn't really have the same type of impact. Kind of like they've found him out and know how to defend him, or I don't know what it is, but he just feels like a shell of the man that he once was. So for me, until he proves himself again in a high level NRL, I'm not picking him to start personally.
He's 350 and dual. So
look, if he starts 8 and he's 350, no worries. I'll take a punt on that. That's fine. I could make a front row work with that. Like that, he's 60, 70K cheaper than Saifidi is. I could do it.
Just with the bench,
but I just don't expect it.
With the bench that I've picked, I don't see many minutes. That's the only issue that I've got with him. So, Hess, Robson, McLean for me. Brew's got Lolo, Robson, McLean, but I'm trying to talk Brew onto the idea of putting Lolo back to 13. I
want him at 13.
Yeah. As for the back rowers, I am pretty confident we have the same in your boy Harlan Lukey and now Bolter, thanks to some Media Day photos, which sees Jerry Nanai wear the 12. Take with that what you will, but they are my back rowers, and I'm pretty sure they're also Brew's.
They are. Nanai was always getting the 12. That was my mail in December. And then I did see the jersey thing, but it didn't shock me. I thought it was common news that, he was getting that spot. I've had him in and out of my side because he's much cheaper than Lukey is. He's about 30K cheaper, I think, than Lukey is. And Nanai's a very hard-working back rower. He would probably be a really good guy to pick. So whilst I hate the Cowboys, there is actually probably 3 or 4 guys that are in my radar of being selected.
Jeremy Nanai, I haven't looked too hard into him. From memory, his PPM isn't fantastic, so he'd probably have to be playing close to 80 for me to like him, and that's where the trials are going to be relevant. The annoying thing is the first week, we get trials back, which is fantastic, but the first batch of trials is just going to be a lot of your junior guys and your developmental guys, so probably wait for the second batch of trials. But yeah, Jeremy Nanai is definitely someone to look at. I think he's like 330K or something like that, so he starts and plays 70-plus minutes. He will most likely be in my side. And then
the games he played last season, he averaged 74 minutes, which was much higher than Lukey. And he's got about a 47 base plus power.
Okay, so there's definitely some value. There's at least 10 points of value. And then we're looking for that 55, 60-point upside, which would be fantastic. The Cowboys don't have an awful draw to start, similar to we were talking about someone like Bradman Best in the Knights podcast. Their draw didn't warrant a punt, but the Roosters So that's tonight. I'll go back to the Cowboys. So the Cowboys draw is the Bulldogs, Raiders, Broncos, Roosters, Warriors. Probably one tough matchup, one mediocre matchup in the Raiders. The Raiders defend pretty well when it comes to Supercoach points, but the Bulldogs could leak a lot. The Broncos and the Warriors defensively have never been fantastic. So, yeah, there's
I don't mind that draw, to be honest with you. Like, that wouldn't turn me off. Would turn me off one of their halves, but not a forward.
He's probably not someone that you'd start either. I mean, you might start him round 1 because you've got Harry Grant on the bench, for example, and when Harry Grant's back, then I'd be the one that drops out. So that's perfectly fine. So definitely watch Jamie Nanai. He is definitely someone to consider for your sides. I've got Jason Taumalolo at 13. I don't know with Lolo. Because there's no stats. Like, we've got no stats on Lolo. It's a gut feel call, isn't it? Like, obviously, we know what he's going to do if you get back to his best, but is he going to get back to his best? That's the question.
What stats do you want on Lolo?
No, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, we've got it's literally just a bounce back, like, fact. That's what we're trying to, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing we can put in to say that this is what he's going to average this year, because there's no, like, he had such a huge drop off. Is that, that's the thing. Like, my brain is scrambling when I'm trying to think of Lolo, because he's been in, he's been out. I've currently got Jack Bird in my side, but Lolo's cheaper. I mean, I know who has more upside out of those two, and like, it's so tough for me to put my finger on Lolo and his stocks this year.
I can argue prop or lock when it comes to Taumalolo, basically. If he's at prop, he's got a much higher work rate, and his base increases. So he doesn't need the same amount of minutes because he works his ass off. If he's lock, then you're looking at 55 to 60 minutes, in which case he's normally a 1 ppm type player with attacking upside, and therefore he's at 485 and can average 60 plus. So for me, he's very much an option. And I think if people are wanting Cleary or Turbo, you're going to have to sacrifice in certain areas. And guys like Taumalolo and even Nanai might become necessities. So if you look at guys that do have the upside, but still have a fairly decent floor, there is an avenue.
What I probably would do when it comes to Lolo is I would pick him, but I would pick him with 100k in the bank. Because for the first 2 rounds, if it goes tits up, you move him on to Curran, you move him on to Maddo or whatever, or you pick Lolo and don't pick Nanai. And that way, if it goes tits up, you can go down to Nanai. That's the thing. Like, I'm warming to the idea of Taumalolo, but I'm not confident on it. I'm warming, but I'm not there yet.
So for me, I personally, I'm not going to carry lots of money in the bank. Personally, I'm going to use every dollar that I can. But with a Lolo, that is my plan, basically. A Nanai, a Lukey, Kobe Hetherington, whoever it is, these guys that are in that mid-range kind of pocket, whichever one's going to make the most money. If Lolo were to start the season and suck ass, well, I'll just downgrade and take some extra cash, and then I'll use that cash elsewhere. You know, I'll upgrade one of these centers that gets off to a flyer and into a keeper. Or, you know, what's his name? Hastings. Like, if you're carrying Hastings at 350, if you're cashing out and making, say, 125, 150k, whatever, through downgrading, that's a 500k forward, halfback or 5'8" that suddenly you can pick up.
I will just make a quick point. I do not care what your vaccination status is. Everyone out there, I don't care if you're vaxxed or not vaxxed. I really do not care. My point is, I want to know what Lolo's is, because he had this interview this week and he didn't disclose it, which makes me nervous because I don't want to pick him. He travels somewhere, doesn't have an exemption, and he's not named. That is the biggest thing that I'm worried about, because I don't want to be playing roulette with the guys in the NRL that aren't vaccinated. It's just not something that I'm keen on.
I think we'll know. I think by TLT we'll know. So
if we don't know, does your opinion on Lolo flip? Sorry, your SuperCoach opinion, not your actual personal opinion.
Yeah, like, he's the same price as Paul Momorowski, for example. So I'll use a dual and I'll flip it. So there's options. There's always options.
You're warming me onto him, but there is a few unknowns I would like to know. So we've touched on basically our starting 13. Let's run through our bench. For me, no Ruben Cotter in my starting 13, but he's too good to leave out of the squad. He is the epitome of number 14 in this North Queensland Cowboys side for me. He is my number 14. I've also included the new boy from the New Zealand Warriors, Jermaine Taumalolo, as my 15. I've also included steady hands like Tom Gilbert and Mitch Dunn as my 16th and 17th to round out the squad.
I do like that bench. I've gone a different route. Obviously, I've got Cotter in my 13, which means that Coen Hess is on my bench. I've got Jake Granville in a 14, and I hate typing that name because I just think he's so overrated.
Dual position, what is he? Dual position hooker fullback this year?
Yep.
What a weird dual position. That's one of the most obscure. That's nearly as good as Dane Laurie's from 2 years ago when he was front row forward centre wing.
That would have been all right. Fullback in the front row forward. I've also got Jermaine Taumalolo. I'm actually expecting big things and a real bounce back season from him. I'm quite keen on him. I think he's going to have a good season.
Yeah,
I don't think he's going to be a super weapon or anything.
Never really found his feet at the Warriors, did he? He just sort of plodded along and never really sort of nailed down a spot. He looked good in his rookie season.
So many big bodies, but there's so much competition for those forwards, and I feel like this will be, a new lease on life for him, and that he'll probably do really well. Finally, I've got Mitch Dunn as my 17. Tom Gilbert was my 18, but so we've got the same 18 players in different order, basically again. So
yeah,
let's see
I
how
would.
We are on TLT. We seem to have very similar sides most weeks.
I don't do an 18th
here and there.
I don't do an 18th man, but if I did, I'd probably put Granville there. I just feel like if you're running Cotter off the bench and you don't need Granville, but if you're going to start Cotter, then you probably do run Granville. So I think it's a case of whatever Payton decides to go. Yeah.
There's an argument to just, put Cotter on the bench, isn't there?
There
if
is.
You can carry an extra forward, then that's much better for them, in my opinion.
That is going to round out the Cowboys. We're back next week. I think we have a few more exciting teams to touch on. I think we have the Eels and the Panthers, and then we have someone else as well. So getting closer to the pointy end of these team reviews, and then we've got a few more plans up our sleeve for just before everything happens. Mate, do you want to announce the big news when it comes to the podcast and team lists? Not team lists, Jesus. I don't know if anyone heard that, but that was some big thunder. Do you want to announce?
I did hear that. I thought you bumped the mic.
Yeah, no, that was the thunder. So it's buckling down.
Wow.
Do you want to announce the news surrounding the podcast and what we're doing regular season, mate?
What news is that?
Oh, this is a great segue. Okay, so basically we're doing this podcast live. So during the season, it'll be Tuesdays and Sundays at 7:30. I think we haven't confirmed the time, but it'll be 7:30. The first 8 rounds are really awkward because the Sunday game either fluctuates from like a 6 o'clock kickoff or there's a couple of Monday kickoffs. But basically, we'll be live about half an hour after the final game ends. During the first couple of weeks, and then moving forward it'll be 7:30 Sundays and Tuesdays. We will be doing this live. We will get you guys involved. We'll have all the questions pop up on screen, or I'll try to program that, and it'll be more interactive with you guys. And yeah, really excited for that. Some good segments coming up, and it's going to include everything from captains, buy, holds and sells, Brew and I's sort of bowl predictions for the week, breakdowns of the games just gone. Brew and I are still trying to iron out the final touches. But yeah, we're going to take this podcast live, which is exciting. But for now, it'll be pre-recorded, and but I'm very keen to have it live, mate.
Yeah, I can't wait for the Tuesday. The Tuesday's madness. It's like
the preview, yes.
So exciting, at 4 o'clock, you're hitting refresh, and looking and where's my cheapie? Is this guy named? And to be able to jump on here shortly after that and talk about it pretty much, just afterwards, I suppose. It depends what time we end up doing the pod on the Tuesday. I'm looking forward to that. You'll get a lot of real raw emotion, I think. It's going to be good. You and I hopefully can start banging out a few more teams pods so that we can maybe do a cows pod. I've been asked a lot about that. Not the cows we just spoke about, as in cash cows. I know people are interested in trials and stuff like that. So we've got a bit to work on. I've been really happy with the feedback too. I've had a lot of inboxes and a lot of new ads and whatnot, and people have been really complimentary of my addition to the show and just the show in general, and that's been really good, and I really appreciate that.
For you guys listening on Spotify and Apple, it will also, the podcast come the regular season will also still be there. So the reason why we're doing it on Tuesday, so to give people that don't catch it live as much chance as possible to listen basically all the way through Wednesday, all the way through Thursday as well. So if you don't manage to catch the live stream Sundays and Tuesdays, don't stress. The podcast will be available as well. So I'm potentially experimenting with the idea of cutting it down as well and just having the sort of individual segments as maybe 5-10 minute audio clips if people just want to listen to those. For example, if people don't want to sit through the entire podcast and they just want to hear the buy, holds and sells, then we might do that as well. So playing with that, just trying to see how much time I've got now. I'm back at work, which is cool, but it's always good when you've taken 2.5 years off work and you come back and then a week later you say, hey, I'm taking a week off with COVID. So I was not popular. I was not popular from the boss man after having 2.5 years off and then taking another week off.
These are the times, unfortunately.
Yes. Anyway, enough ramble from us. One little announcement. I was just trying to fill some time there. But Cowboys is done. Thank God. Knights is done from a couple of days ago. Also, thank God. We're moving on to some more exciting sides. Next week, I've been your host, the SC Whisperer. I've been joined by Brewer SC, as always. You've been listening to us on the Dual Position Podcast, your one-stop shop for all things NRL Supercoach. How do I end this thing? Bye.
Thanks for listening. Bye, guys.
Bye.